Just change.
Hello. Welcome, Chop Nation. We are the milestone day today. Welcome to our show. We are on episode number 4 today. Welcome to Chop Talk. I am JB along with my co-host Jeremiah James. Dude, we hit a month. 4th episode. We've hit a month of episodes. So
number 4.
Exciting. Yep. Number 4, baby. We're doing great things today. So excited to be here today. And I know that it's a little bit later into the week than usual. But we're so excited to be here. We have a lot that we have to talk about today. Current Knowles Chiefs news, NBA playoff predictions, NIL transfer portal, and then our special guest, Mr. Jason Menard, all the way from Douglas, Kansas. So we're really excited for the show today. And man, let's get to it, man. How you doing today? Still on location, right?
Still on location in an Airbnb nearest you, somewhere in the United States. Play a game called Where's Jeremiah James?
That's right. Yeah, like a Where's Waldo? It's like what town or city are you going to be in next? So since last week, you've gone from Kansas to San Antonio, correct?
We were in Atlanta, and then to Kansas, and now we were in Dallas, and now San Antonio.
Dallas, now San Antonio. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Fantastic, man. Well, it's good to have you here. You look obviously no technical difficulties we should have today from you, which is great, man.
The day is still early, JB. The day is still early. You never know.
Real early in the episode. Well, again, welcome to all of our fans. Thank you again so much with us being on all of these different platforms. It's all been you who has been able to give us the ability to come and do this every single week. And so we're so excited to come in with our 4th episode. Again, as we said before, we have a lot to talk about. So much going on in the sports world and some great conversations ahead. So Jeremiah, why don't you open up with what's going on in not so many good things, but what's going on there in the old Chiefs kingdom?
We got some good things. We got some bad things. You know how that goes.
Oh, there are some good things. Okay.
All right, there are some good things. Absolutely. I sent it to you. I texted it to you. So I'll share that with Chop Nation here in a second. I know you don't seem to care, and it's okay. It's okay. Not everybody can love Patty Mahomes as much as we love Patty Mahomes.
True. All right. Very true.
So I'm going to go with 3 things because that seems to be working well for us. The Chiefs began their offseason practice a couple days ago. OTAs, this first phase, it's just, it's limited to meetings, strength training, conditioning, physical rehabilitation. It can be virtual, so they don't have to physically be there. It is voluntary, so you're not going to see everybody there. But I've been told that they had a very good turnout so far, which is to be expected from the 2-time returning Super Bowl champions. They want to bring everybody back. So number 2 in news, I was pausing there to give you a chance to say something.
Just a bunch of divas. Just a bunch of divas.
A bunch of divas. How dare you, sir? And then obviously, number 2 is the update on Rishi Rice. That's obviously sticking in the news.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. I don't know if you saw this yet or JB, but he was sued by 2 people who were injured in that car crash. Did you see that?
I did not. The only thing that I saw, it was that he was going to still probably be attending somewhat of the OTA meetings virtually.
Yeah. He was. He talked to Coach Reed, and the Chiefs' statement is how it always is we'll see how it plays out legally, and then kind of go from there and what we're going to do, which is I'm fine with that. That should be their line, So it's not that he's not coming back. It's not that he's probably going to be suspended for multiple games would be my guess.
For sure.
That's 100% going to happen, but how many, we don't know. I just hope he's not, going to jail. So the guy who was driving the other vehicle was Teddy Knox. He's a cornerback for SMU, which is obviously where Rishi Rice played. They're both being sued. I think it's about $1 million by Irina Gromova and Edvard Petriovsky for numerous injuries, including trauma to the brain, lacerations to the face requiring stitches, multiple contusions to the body, disfigurement, internal bleeding, and internal and external injuries that can only be fully revealed through a course of medical treatment. So they're asking for $1 million in negligence and punitive damages. And I don't know. I think this happened on April 11th. He was arrested. And then he quickly turned bail, of course. So
yeah, he turned himself in and did bail. Yep.
Yep. So eight charges for him. There are 6 counts of collision, including bodily injury. There's 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and then 1 count of aggravated assault. So we'll see how that plays out over the next probably 6 to 8 weeks, and see what happens in the Texas courtrooms. So maybe nothing happens, right? We'll see.
Maybe nothing happens. Yeah, I mean, it always remains to be seen. I mean, obviously, fortunately, nobody died, but you look at that young Raiders receiver, and there was I believe a woman that did pass away in his, and so obviously, much different. Much different turnout legally, for him, because somebody did pass away, but just a tragic event, either way. So, we'll see what happens to him. Big loss to the Chiefs, right? Number 1 receiver last year, yard wise, everybody looks at Travis Kelce, but at the end of the day, yard wise, that's a big hit.
It is a big hit. Yeah. So, we're praying for him, his family. He did finally say it was me. He didn't hide behind anything. He came out and mea culpa the thing, which I applaud him for doing. I don't applaud him for walking away from the scene. That was very dumb of him, but him and his friends.
Yeah,
but,
and on camera. It's like
and multiple cameras. Yeah.
You're not going to be able to get away with anything anymore that's not on a camera.
No.
To some degree.
If you're a professional athlete, don't do anything. And if you do, don't walk away from it. Everyone's gonna know.
Everybody's gonna know. Mm-hmm. Everybody's gonna know. Between social media, cameras, people are much more in tune to even, you see this like in Hollywood, on movies and stuff, but it's legit. It's the same thing that happens in society, which is why they put it in there. People are more inclined to what can I get on camera than even helping. Right. Yeah. So you see situations, car accidents, situations with fights, PD, somebody getting robbed, whatever. Right. And it's like, oh, let me see if I can
let me turn on my camera versus going to help the individual. Right.
Forget helping anybody out. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the society that we live in, unfortunately, right now. And you walking away is like, well, that just made it much worse, for
I agree. So that's the kind of the bad news in Chiefs Kingdom. Hopefully it'll turn into good news, but we'll see. Number 3 is, and I'm going to go into number 3, but I did want to say that the informal Mahomes camp down in Texas was happening. He was down there with Chris Oladacoon, Sky Moore, Anthony Miller, Nico Remigio, the new guy, Louis Rees-Zammit, from overseas, and then Noah Gray. So they were all down in Texas, running some routes and spending some time with their QB, which is, I think, very important. So that's happening. And then that leads into number 3, which I did send to you. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes has once been recognized by Time Magazine as one of the 100 most. You got that smug, JB, that smile on your face. You can't. He's like, don't even say it. 100 most influential people in the world.
Terrible.
In the entire world, JB. How does that make you feel? Patty Mahomes, most influential in the world.
It's not shocking. They've Time Magazine has chosen a lot of goofballs to be, 100 most influential people over the years. So under no circumstances does this surprise me that they chose Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I mean, I will give him this. Everybody's looking for a winner, right? To emulate and to be inspired by. You have, the Caitlin Clarks of the world and the Tom Brady's of the world, and everybody's looking for a winner. So, and that's what he is. So that's what they're inspired by in their athletic journey as winners, and he is one. Hands down. There's no arguing that whatsoever. So absolutely. I know I bust on them as a big Bucs fan, but nevertheless, that you don't argue is that as far as work ethic is concerned and winning and just what it takes, to get to that level. And to win at that level, certainly inspiring a lot of younger athletes, to put forth that effort and what could be. So very because true. Coming out of college, out of Texas Tech, it wasn't as if he was a highly looked at, but he wasn't like a top QB that everybody was on the radar with at the time. Yeah. So coming in behind Alex Smith and needing to show who he was, very Tom Brady-esque. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that you know, that doesn't surprise me when it comes to, you know, inspiring in that realm for sure.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't his first time on the list either. I don't know if you knew that or not, but he was on it in 2020. He was on it last year, and then he was on it again. So I don't know if you read the excerpt, but I'm gonna go ahead and read it in its full form. A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez. I need you to hear what Alex Rodriguez said about our quarterback, Patty Mahomes.
I saw that too. Like who wrote it, and it was like, all right, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, I
makes it
mean,
even worse.
Derek
Go
Jeter
for it.
wrote one, Peyton Manning wrote the one last year, and A-Rod wrote this one. And then, since you've already heard it, I'm actually going to say it out loud on the
Go for
show
it.
for Chop Nation and for Chiefs Kingdom. He wrote, Patrick Mahomes has always had the heart of a champion. I remember Pat as a young kid coming to practice with his dad to tee up baseballs for me and my teammates. I distinctly remember giving him the worst advice ever: don't play football. The money's in baseball. I'm happy to be wrong and glad he didn't listen. Patrick's legacy will live on far beyond his playing days. And as evidenced by his back-to-back Super Bowl wins, he's not done yet. So thank you, A-Rod, for those words. We appreciate that. Chiefs Kingdom does. And I digress. I will get off my Chiefs soapbox, JB. I want to hear what's going on with FSU, buddy.
That's what this is about, man. This is what this is about. Go for it, man. Continue to bask in it. You know, you have another year, you know, so, you know, we'll see how February of next year comes and whether or not this is another topic of conversation. So we'll see how the season goes. I know you sent me the photo. I
want everybody else to see it. All right, there you go. Right, I'm done.
I see it. For those of you that are listening on iTunes or Spotify, thank yourself. But if you actually do want to see the video of this, you can see us on YouTube at Chop Podcast or Talk Podcast. So check us out on there if you actually want to see the video of all this this nonsense going on. You know, I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
But no, that's good stuff, man. You know, it's always good to talk about football in April, right?
Yep.
Right on. You got anything else for from coming from Chiefs Kingdom, the Chiefs camp?
No, let's hear about FSU, buddy.
All right. Well, so excited. This coming week is the spring game. So we're getting some football going here on Saturday at 4 p.m. in Tallahassee. Now that there's a lot of seats, doing a lot of renovation inside Doak Campbell Stadium. But 4 p.m. spring game. So a lot to look forward to. Summer is going to be starting really soon, so there is a lot that's being shut down, player wise for the rest of spring. But you know, there are a few individuals that we're looking forward to seeing on Saturday, which is obviously, as we've talked about in numerous episodes, quarterback DJ Uangale, who's doing an awesome job, you know, so far, seeing great things every single day, getting a lot more comfortable in the system, according to Mike Norvell, every single day, showing a lot of great things. Quarterback Brock Glenn and Luke Kromenhoek, as we've talked about those two in previous episodes, they're going to be shut down for the spring. So it'll be, I forget what the other guy's name is. He's actually a 4-star quarterback, walk-on, Trevor Anderson, I think. I forget what his name is. First name is Trevor. And so he's going to be taking a lot of the reps as well with DJU. And so that's going to be awesome to kind of see where he's at as a red shirt, you know, going forward.
Right.
Wait.
And so he was a 4-star out of high school?
Yes, he was a 4-star out of high school, and he was a walk-on for us.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I believe here in the Orlando area.
I'll do some more research on that. That's interesting.
For sure. I have a buddy of mine at the fire department. You know, he's very big into the recruiting aspect. So, you know, he's and he works with me. So we always have our Knowles talk every shift. And so he was kind of telling me about him. So I was looking him up because I hadn't really heard of him. But, you know, I was doing some research on him and seems to be very, very impressive in the work that he was doing, you know, in practices leading up to this weekend. So really excited to kind of see where these players go and how they're working. And then other than DJU, running back Roydell Williams, he's a transfer from Alabama. And our running back room, as we discussed in the past, is great. We have a lot of younger guys, veteran guys that have been there. Lawrence Toafili, you know, he was the our top guy of the ACC, or he was the MVP of the ACC championship game.
Okay.
And with like 118 yards, a touchdown or two. And so he's just been a very, very valuable piece to our backfield for a long period of time. And but Roydell Williams apparently has shown great things so far. Him and Jalen Lucas, we talked about being the fastest guy on the team. We were talking about that a little bit last week. So really, really excited to see. He's not going to be like your north and south runner. He's not going to be your in between the tackles kind of guy. He's going to be kind of like your throw it out in the flat slot type of guy.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, blazing fast speed. So that's going to be awesome to kind of see what they do. Roydell is supposed to be really, really hitting it hard. So we're going to see how they do. So really excited to go from there. What else do we got here? So our conversation later with our special guest speaker is going to be on NIL and Transfer Portal. We teased this a little bit last week. We want to have a big discussion. There's a lot to say on the culture of football, where it's come in the last 4 to 5 years, 5 to 6 years with NIL and Transfer Portal. But in reference to Florida State, though, the spring transfer portal did open up yesterday, 4/16. And right now we have 15 total from the winter transfer portal window that ended in January.
Okay.
We have 15 total transfer portal. We actually ranked number 4 in the country transfer portal wise, which is of no surprise because if you know Mike Norvell, he is the transfer portal king. So we picked up a lot of areas that we were weak in. We obviously lost a lot of people to the NFL and to the transfer portal. So he did a great job going and picking up those players.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of need at this particular moment at different positions, but nevertheless, you're always looking to see how you can better your team, right? But we did kind of have like a big hit as of this last week in our defensive area. Senior defensive tackle Greedy Vance entered the transfer portal. And that was kind of a big thing because, he is he's a senior and was a very productive guy for us. Played 2 seasons with FSU after playing 2 seasons with Louisville. He appeared in all 14 of our games, starting 5 of them. And I get it because, he's a, he's a great player.
Yeah.
And when you have I'm sorry, it was a defensive back. So when you have a good, strong DB room, which we do coming into this season, then you're valuing and you're looking at playing time and you're like, okay, is this going to be worth it with the talent that I have?
Right.
And he does have a lot of talent and it was hard to kind of lose that. But what that showed is that the rise of Earl Little Jr., who's a transfer this past transfer portal from Alabama. So again, we got a ton of Alabama guys come in from there. So, but he has really shown great strides into really leading the way, probably getting a lot more playing time there at that position. So I think Greedy Vance just kind of looked at it and was like, you know what? I think if I go somewhere else, I'm probably going to get a lot more playing time. I have one more year of eligibility, so we're gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So and I mean, it makes sense, but it was a hard hit.
Yeah.
One area that Florida State does look to address in the transfer portal in this next spring window is defensive tackle, which most schools are. So obviously, as the passing attack is ramping up, throughout college football, then what's the main goal, right? Getting these defensive tackles to go in there and disrupt, the timing of the QBs and hitting those gaps hard. So most teams, good teams are looking for those good D tackle positions to really help improve that line. But there's some really good transfers on the market at D tackle, so I'm sure that we will, Mike Norvell will do a lot of great things in picking up that position. Yeah. But so that's kind of what's going on right now in the spring world. Again, exciting to see what happens on Saturday. There is a lot of players that are, again, going to be sitting out for the spring, but that's okay. We'll see them in the summer months to see how they are. We talked before about certain wide receivers needing to step up and who was going to be that next big guy when you lose guys like Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, to the draft. Who is going to be that next guy to stand up? And so far, Malik Benson, who was our transfer from Alabama, as we spoke about before, has really been stepping up and trying to lead the way. So it looks like our wide receiver play is really starting to to really show itself, which is great.
Yeah.
Offense, Norvell had a lot of great things to say about the offense after this week, which was a great thing. After last week, he was more encouraging about who was going to step up to the plate there when it came to the offense and that side of the ball. So great to see some great improvement, and excited to see what's going to go on on Saturday.
Are you going?
I wish that I could actually go up there and be on location from there. That would be pretty nice. But unfortunately, that won't be able to happen. So we'll see. As always, Go Noles, excited to again just have this platform to talk about football in April.
Oh yeah,
it's always a very fun thing.
Yeah, man. I think we're going to talk football 24/7, 12 months a year, even in April.
Yes. Yeah,
this is what it is.
It is what it is, man. We gotta love our teams. We gotta love the sports and keep going with it. Let's transition though into our next topic of recent news. We have the NBA playoffs. They're in full effect. We have the play-in tournament going on right now, so we still have a couple more. We have the 8th seeds that are being played for currently. Yeah, and I think like the rest of the playoffs should start on Saturday. So I believe that the play-ins should be just about done after tonight or tomorrow.
I think we should give a quick shout out for our home team on the east side, the Orlando Magic.
Absolutely. Orlando Magic coming in strong. Listen, real fast on that to just explain my fanhood. And again, extremely fast on that. So in 1993, I went to my first Magic game. And I've grown up here in the Orlando area I haven't moved out of the same 15 to 20 mile radius my whole entire life. So I've lived here in this area, being a diehard Magic fan my whole entire life. 7 years old, going to my first game. And at this game was like Craig Elo, Dominique Wilkins. We were playing the Hawks at that time. Yeah. So some icons, some legendary NBA player guys. Yeah. And it just became a diehard Magic fan. I was actually an honorary ball kid at 10 years old. So you went to Sears and you actually applied to be like an honorary ball kid. And at that time, they introduced you with the team. So you got to come out of the tunnel with the team, slap hands with everybody. And then they sat you right behind the basket. So you sat on the back of the basket at the part that weighs it down. And that's where you watch the game. And you could bring your parents and they did it up. And so that was like Ron Harper, Nick Anderson, a lot of these guys, back in 93, 94.
I have a question real fast.
Go for it.
Put a pin in that. Real fast question. What is Sears? What is Sears?
What is Sears? It was an old department store that completely closed down. I was going to say, yeah.
All right, so go ahead.
I was just reading something today that all of their stores have closed. Sears was the store, man. Sears was the day. Store. Yeah, that's right. That's a back in the day one right there. So eventually in 2009, we went to the Eastern Conference Finals and made it to the NBA Finals with Dwight Howard, my favorite Magic player of all time, Hedo Turkoglu.
Yes, he was lights out Hedo.
I mean, I know that surprises a lot of people because people would think, Shaq, Penny, Nick Anderson, whatever. No, man, Hedo Turkoglu. That's the only Magic jersey I own right now.
Really? You still have you have one of those jerseys?
Yeah, I have a Hedo Turkoglu jersey.
When we had season tickets for years, Hedo was in his prime. I remember all those games. We had tickets at the other one, not the Amway Arena now, Amway Center or whatever they call it. Over off of whatever that we had tickets there. Season tickets at the old bowl.
A part of me, I'm not gonna lie, part of me died watching that thing implode.
Yeah, me too.
It really did, because just spending back in the day, you could go up to the ticket box office, which was on the side of the old arena, and you could go and spend $10 or $15 buying a ticket. You could just walk up in there, get one single ticket for $10 or $15, and boom. And I used to do that all the time. It was to the point where you'd have season ticket holders reps calling me, trying to get me to become a season. They're like, you got to go a lot of games, for being for just having
should have
single tickets.
I don't know why you didn't.
Because I was poor and spent my money that I shouldn't have, going to these games. But nevertheless, and then obviously went to thanks to a friend, was able to go to one of the finals games back in 2009. And at the time, although I'm not anymore, and this is a topic for another day, I was a Dwight Howard fan at the time. And so big Dwight Howard fan, went in there, had my Superman cape on, all Magic, geared out. I mean, it was electric, man. You're watching Pau Gasol and Kobe
Yes.
and everybody from the Magic. I mean, it was just you're like, when is this going to happen again? So the fact that I was able to be there for that 14 years ago was great. I was at the last playoff game in 2012 before we went numerous years, I think 8 or 9 years without even being in the playoffs again. And then went again in
bit of a drought.
20 or 21, when we were last in the playoffs, went again. So it's just a diehard fan, man. My bedrooms when I was little was, Orlando Magic stuff. I had Orlando Magic lockers. I had comforters that were like Shaquille O'Neal comforters. And I mean, just as I would be in Orlando Magic basketball camps. I actually got Nick Anderson's autograph in a nail salon around the corner from my house one day. Dwight Howard was actually
JB's getting a mani-pedi.
No doubt. We're sitting there going to Publix, and it was in a shopping plaza, and everybody's like, Nick Anderson's right there inside.
Right.
And so all we have was like a bank statement. So I still have like a bank statement of him, signing this.
Two things real fast. One,
go for it.
I want to see the picture of you with the cape, the Superman cape.
Absolutely.
Please bring that on for the show for next week.
Yes.
Number two, ask Jason when he comes on the show, our guest today, about his room when he was young and which NBA team he had.
He's laughing, so I got to hear this.
You're going to be surprised. He's going to be like, "Oh, this sounds familiar." So we'll put a pin in that when he comes on and let him.
Yes,
talk about it.
Absolutely. Let's talk. I have no shame in my fanhood under any circumstances. Diehard Magic fan as they come. And then the last bit before we get Jason on is so in being a big Dwight Howard fan, it was like 2009, 2010. So we had already won the Eastern Conference Championship, lost in the finals, and then now we have the following year, and I've already got an Eastern Conference Championship hat. So it's 2:00 in the morning, and my old roommate, was the guy to go and hang out after work until all late hours. So it's literally like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He calls my phone, and I'm dead asleep, and he's like, "Hey, your boy's up here at Waffle House." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Dwight Howard. He's up here at Waffle House." I was like, "Okay."
Which one? What on Cimarron?
Over here in Altamont.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So there's one that was right up the street here in Altamont, and so I woke up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, grabbed my hat, went to Waffle House, went and sat with my buddy, looked for an opening, went and got his signature. He was cool about it.
Yeah.
And, again, obviously I look at it now as a very waste of time. But again, I digress on my,
did you bring the hat? Did you bring the hat because you didn't have a bank statement with you?
Yeah. No, I had nothing. I was like, what am I going to grab at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning? I got to grab something.
I mean, the hat's the appropriate thing to grab. Yeah. Especially if it's a Magic hat for sure.
So, he signed the brim, and it was like, okay, perfect. I've got a signed hat by Dwight Howard, Eastern Conference Championship hat. So, yes. So anyways, very, very excited, to see the Magic taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. We unfortunately could not get home court in this one, but that's okay. First game tipping off on Saturday. I believe at like 1 o'clock on Saturday. So very, very excited. Great day of sports happening there with the Orlando Magic spring game. So go Magic. We come back home. We play 2 games in Cleveland and come back home the following week. So very quickly, just going over the rest of the seeds, you're still looking for the 8th seed in the East and the West, but currently you have the Magic and the Cavs. At the 4-5, you have the
Bucks Pacers,
and then Knicks and 76ers, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I think the 76ers won.
I have to look that up.
Yeah, I think the 76ers won. So you have Bucks, Pacers, Magic, Cleveland, and then you have the first seed is obviously Boston, who just has had a phenomenal season.
Yeah.
And then over there in the West, you had the Lakers that beat the Pelicans and the Kings that ousted the Warriors. The Warriors out of the playoffs. Another topic for another day. I think
it's weird seeing them in the 10th spot, having to play in, isn't it? Isn't it weird seeing them in the 10th spot, having to play in?
having to play in, and
Yeah.
seeing both teams, the
True.
Lakers and the Warriors, almost playing one another for a play-in.
It's surreal.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. And the Pelicans almost beat them last night too. Zion goes out with 3 or 4 minutes left, has a 40-point game, gets injured, unknown injury, goes out with 3 or 4 minutes left, and they lose by just a couple points. So that was a tough one. But again, topic for another day. Going to put a pin in it, but I think this is the end of the Warriors dynasty.
Okay.
I do. I think it's the very end.
Are we going to say who we think is going to win this whole thing? Are you ready to make a selection on both sides? Who's going to the championship?
Oh, well, obviously being a Magic fan, I'm going to say the Magic. You know, that's my dream, matchup,
I'm not
right?
going to say that.
Would be I'm going to say the Magic against the we're going to go, and I love how young and crazy it is that OKC is the number 1 seed.
Okay.
So go for
OKC and Magic.
Okay, OKC and Magic is my dream scenario. Realistic scenario, I see the Celtics still coming out of the East. I think that I think they come out and they play. Oh, I'm going to say either OKC or Denver. I know that that's a 1 and a 2, but the only reason why is because I think OKC has played these teams, and with the way that the teams are right now, be careful for a Maverick team coming out of nowhere in the playoffs with Kyrie and Luka. But I think that now you're getting into the playoffs, and now you got Jamal Murray and the Joker, now in the playoffs, having just won a championship. So now you have that experience coming into play. So I still think you have Boston and one of those 2 or 3 teams coming through. And at the very end, my realistic pick to win it all is the Boston Celtics. Championship of the 2024 NBA playoff.
Chop Nation, you heard it here first. Boston
Chop Nation,
Celtics.
you heard it here first.
Here's the thing. I'm going to give you credit because you picked Purdue in the NCAA championship, and they played. I mean, they lost, but you did choose them to at least get there, and they did. So I think I would agree with you. I think the Celtics have a great shot. I'm going to go a little bit different direction. I'm not going to choose the Magic. I don't think they're ready yet. That would be wonderful if that could happen. I just don't see it happen. Yes, so I'm gonna go a little bit of 2-2 action. I'm gonna go with my boy Julio, who's a big Knicks fan. He's been talking him up, and I agree. So shout out to you, Julio. He's from New York. I'm gonna go with the Knicks and the Nuggets. Knicks Nuggets.
Okay.
Number 2 versus number 2. I think number 1.
Stephen A. Smith and Spike Lee would love that.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. So that's my prediction, and I'm gonna stick to that, and we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Well, that is your NBA playoff picture as of right now. Next week, the playoffs will have begun. You will have your 8 seed, and the playoffs will have begun, so we'll have a lot to talk about there. We want to give some time today to our special guest host, Mr. Jason Menard, all the way from Douglas, Kansas. Yes, Mr. Jason, I did my research on you. I've got some of the nitty-gritty of your life. Your brothers and all the schools you went to, the nice things that people have said about you. You didn't realize how much you could find on the internet, bud. But
you're in trouble, Jason.
all good things. But nevertheless, athletic director of the year, correct, and vice principal in Douglas County District in Kansas, Mr. Jason Menard. We're going to invite him here to the show. Let's get you on, my friend, and add you in. Here we go. Welcome, my friend. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. And
Jason Menard, everybody.
That was the greatest introduction of my life. Holy cow! That was totally unwarranted.
There he is.
Yeah, I did my research on you. I like to do all my research on the special guests that have Jeremiah's been finding, some guys that have some sports history. So it's like, well, you got to see what you can find out there. So I found a lot on how you met your wife and school and what school and all the above. So, man, a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome. It's always a pleasure to have all of our special guests. And so thank you for joining this goofy bunch here that we have going on.
Yeah.
Fourth episode, milestone. We've been doing it for 4 weeks now. We hit a month. So you are a special month guest, man.
I've enjoyed every second I've got to watch of it. Usually what happens is I'm traveling to athletic events just to supervise, and that's when I will put it on because I'll have like an hour trip or whatever, and I just put it on and listen. But it feels like it should be like a radio show. Like I'm sitting there. I told Jeremy this. I said I feel like there's a million things. I'm like I want to call in and just tell him something right now, and I'm like I can't.
One day.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's I've enjoyed listening to it. You guys do an awesome job, and
Awesome,
hopefully I
man.
can at least contribute something today of matter, and looking forward to it. So
yeah. we were told, I have a lot to say and a lot of opinions on the state of college sports and where it is now with NIL and transfer portal. And so we were gonna talk about it last week. And he said, "Hey, Jason wants you to hold off."
Right.
Yeah,
Hold on.
He's got some
Jason.
stuff he wants to share. I said,
Things
all
to get
right.
off his chest.
I'll bite it for one more week, but that's it. Next week we're talking about it.
So here we are.
So
debate.
that's awesome, man. Well, we want to take this opportunity first before we jump into that topic to just get to know you and who you are. One of the main goals that we have for the show when we're actually interviewing somebody is to get individuals that are coaches, players, whatever, that have a background of being men and women of their faith, and how and their success in sports and how that kind of impacted one in the other. So yeah, man, we'd just love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of came into the world of sports and how you kind of came into your faith.
Yeah. How much time we have again? Because I could unload some long stories here, but
go for it. If I feel like you're hitting a spot, we'll make sure we cut you off. We'll
perfect.
do this
Cut me off.
here.
Probably 30 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, so I came from a family. I'm one of three brothers, and I grew up in a Christian household. Church game every Sunday. It was a priority, and so that I was nothing like I came from like a tough times and or challenge that really challenged my faith. And I had my dad. It's kind of always been my faith leader of our home, and I think it's super important nowadays as well. And so I just grew up. I played sports growing up, but then I went to a larger high school, so you kind of had to hone in on maybe one activity because there was just so many kids, and then you'd have to kind of specialize a little bit more, which I can talk a little bit more about my current job and how that looks different now. And so I kind of honed in on soccer was kind of my thing. And so I've had some highs with sports. I've been part of a state championship team when I was a junior in high school. And then I went to college, not originally planning on playing soccer. And that's a long story in itself that I won't get into on this time, but I ended up playing soccer at college, and it was a blast. And we ended up winning a national championship in soccer.
I was going to say that on your behalf, so that way everybody knew. 2004 NCAA national championship.
2006.
Oh, on this page it says 04. Sorry.
Yeah, and it was down in Kissimmee. Is that how you pronounce that? Florida. So Jeremy.
Yeah,
it's close enough.
Yeah. And so Jeremy was, I think, there at least one of the games, maybe. And so I had an opportunity to win a national championship. And so you're talking some high from achieving things as a team. But what I've come to find out over the course of all of my experiences from that, none of that is important compared to my faith and what that means with my faith with my family now, and what I want my kids to know moving forward. And those are all fun, fulfilling, but that gets me nowhere in my future and eternally, and that's what I'm finding out the older I get and the more mature I guess I get, is finding my value and into my faith and how I want that to look with my kids. It takes precedence over everything. So I went to college, and I did meet my wife, Heidi, and so we have now 4 beautiful daughters, and so I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and they keep me really, really busy.
All girls, correct?
All girls. I come from all boys.
All girls. I was like, oh my gosh, beautiful family, beautiful family.
Yeah,
but I was like, that is a special man right there.
Yeah, well, yes, very much so. I'm very blessed, and God is challenging me in that capacity for sure. I'm learning this whole girl thing, but it's been a blast. And And so, yeah, now I get to my current role where I've held the same job for 11 years. I'm like you said in the intro, I'm an assistant principal and athletic director for all middle school and high school activities here in Douglas. It's a public school here in Kansas, just right outside the Wichita metro. We have a total of 174 kids in my high school that I am the assistant principal athletic director
Wow.
for. So when we talk about earlier, when I said I had kind of had to hone in and special on one thing, at our school is not the case. We want kids to basically do everything because
For
you're
sure.
good athletes. You need to do, your boys, you want them to do football or, cross country in the fall, and you want them to play basketball or wrestle, and then you want them to do track or baseball. You want them involved because they're going to be major impact kids for you. And so we're trying to get my kids now well-rounded and not just, hey, we're only going to hone in on this one thing or whatever. So that's been 11 years in this current position as the APAD here.
Wow.
And I love it. I've loved every second of it. But it is a very, very busy job. And as my family continues to grow, that has created some challenges as far as time away from home. And that goes back to that perspective a little bit of being away from your family does make it a little more challenging. So, but I do love it. I've loved how the road I've got to get to this position. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I would say that you have certainly, seen the Spirit of God move, through you and the way it sounds anyways, through every single thing. You've acted in obedience to where he has wanted you to go. And you've seen the fruit of that, where that you're walking through the will that the Lord has for you. So that's awesome. And it's very, very inspiring that you've come this far. And like you said, it's a sacrifice, right? Like, I mean, I'm married with only 2 kids, not 4, but that time away is certainly a sacrifice, and you've done a lot to certainly walk through what the Lord wants you to do. So that's very admirable, man, for sure.
Thank you.
Having such a strong faith and being in the sports world, do you have some specific examples over that 10, 12 years that you could share with the listeners of Chop Nation that could potentially help them in their walk as well?
I think at the end of the day, like what you believe and what is right, and you got to follow that. Sometimes in my profession, there's sometimes that you're going to make some people upset. And there's sometimes I'm really conflicted, and I know this isn't going to be the platform I want to get into with political stuff that's going on, but like there's some serious Christian moral stuff that's challenging me, especially, each passing year, that there's more and more out there that at the end of the day, I just know what I believe, what I feel like the Bible says. I think that's super important. That's, you got to go back to, that's the foundation of my faith is what does the Bible say, and at the end of the day, I got to sleep well at night knowing that that's who I adhere to is the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I got to make sure that I'm doing that and making the decisions based off that. Not, this is a job. I love my job, but at the end of the day, it's a job, and I want to make sure that I'm doing things that, like I told you, to get to my end goal, which is not of this earth. And so
that's right. Amen.
So that at the end of the day, I'm going to make decisions of what's going to secure me in my faith. And if there's anything that's going to compromise that at the end of the day, then that's where I have to do some self-reflection, go, maybe this isn't for me anymore, So I think just the, public education itself has some political charges to it that challenge sometimes the moral side of things for me a lot. But it hasn't to this point. We have a great school district I work for. It's a very conservative school district that has supported me in that capacity. And we have a good board of education and all that type of stuff. So I haven't got to that point where I've even been slightly frustrated from that. But you read a lot of stories on the news and stuff like that sometimes.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
You can sometimes see things coming. And you're kind of like, when will that trickle out to conservative America? You just don't know. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest things there. It's almost an anticipation, maybe. So
one of the things that you said, it just kind of hit me because I feel like I'm not old, I'm only 39, but even at 39 years old, it's like you end up getting this like an old man filter now where it's like, at the end of the day, this is what I'm standing for. And you know what? And there's nothing else that's going to steer me away from this. Yeah. Because just like you said, like with where, the country and the world is and the ideologies that are being impressed upon us as adults, our children and so on, you're like, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't have the time and effort to put into to diving into any of that stuff, just like you talked about politics and other things. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to live each and every day according to what this word says and the way that I'm supposed to walk this life. And I'm going to get before the Lord each and every day on my knees, ask you what your will is for me for this day. Thank you for allowing me to wake up this day. I made the cut. My kids made the cut. My wife made the cut. So what are you wanting to see out of us? And let's just move on. Let's just take it each day at a time as to what your will is, Lord.
Yep.
So that's awesome, man.
I think that's something that, I've grown a lot maturity wise over the course of the last 11 years in this job, but I think some of that is getting back to what you just said too, though, is like I think that's maturity in my faith going, that's the priority now. And so at the end of the day, like you said, but I've also seen that demonstrated. I got a good friend that this is, he's a pastor, and this is just his belief, and he doesn't really care what you think about it. This is what he believes, and this is the right thing. This is what the Bible says, and he's going to do it. So that helps. That's contagious mentality a little bit, knowing that you don't have to stand on your faith by yourself. There's other people that believe like you do. And, I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing there's people like you that believe that it's okay to stand up. And there are people out there that are just like you and believe what you believe. And those are the people you want to surround your life with, because it does make life easier when you're doing that and you're not isolated. Because that's the second thing, if I had to pick a second thing there, Jeremy, was, even though I've never been stronger in my faith, I've never been closer to God, I've also probably never been as lonely from maybe a social perspective. And, because there's some stuff like, you're not doing some things anymore and whatnot, but those are decisions to make. So.
Yeah. Appreciate you sharing that for sure.
Yeah.
JB, what do you think? Any other questions, or you want to turn it over to NIL?
Yeah, we certainly can turn that back over. But one of the things I just wanted to encourage you with, because at the very end you said, one of the more like lonely times, right? And it's like, because at this particular point, just like you said, like I work at the fire department, and I don't judge any of those guys. I love the guys that I work with, but they just live a different life, than I do. But I don't judge them. I love them for it. Go out there, man, really connect with one another and have a great time. But there may be things that they decide to go do that I just don't necessarily go and do. And fortunately, those times that I do get to be with them and hang out with them are great. But over the course of my life, I have been able to develop, that circle, right? That circle that remains here. And you know what? And who's to say that in a handful of years, the Lord doesn't separate that circle. And at that particular point, it's like, okay, well, that circle is not there anymore, like it used to be. And I know my wife, has gone through that. She has a really close circle of 4 or 5 of her peers, and that are none of them are here. And so everything is remote, and see them, maybe once or twice a year. And so we certainly get it. But, at the end of the day, we know that, that just to encourage you, we know at the end of the day, though, that it's for a purpose, right? And what we're serving the Lord for, and the way that we're representing ourselves. Like that's the choice that we're making, is to say, okay, we're representing ourselves. I had a gentleman once, real fast before we turn it over. I had a gentleman once at the very beginning of my career at the fire department. And, he saw that I was going through a lot of persecution at that particular point. I'm only 22 years old and just really trying to stand strong in my faith. And he and I were doing a standby at a football game together. And he leaned over to me. He said, listen, he said, he was going to a different fire department at the time after 5 or 6 years. And he said, if I can encourage you with one thing, is to stay true to who you are. And I said, okay, well, what do you mean? He said, when I started the fire department, he said, I was the same as you. He said, I was very strong in my faith. I was strong on my morals and what I stood by. He said, but I was hitting the same persecution that you are. And it was easier for me to just give over to their ways, right, to feel like and become one. He said, and I've regretted it every day since. Yep. And so it's 17 years in, and I don't forget that, because that's something for me. It's like, yeah, we're going to have our times where, we might feel a little lonely, right? A little bit more on that island, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, what are we representing when we're on the island? Who are we trying to please at the end of the day? Yeah. Our life ends tomorrow. Who are we trying to please? So, man, you have such a great testimony of just, great success in sports and in life in general, and how the Lord has just really moved, through your life. So I commend you for that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being vulnerable and opening up to that, because that's just a great story, to share to our listeners.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We all fall short, right? Like I can name several instances in the last couple of weeks. I've screwed up and I've messed up, and that's human nature. But I think the biggest thing is, now versus 5 years ago, Jason, is there's an active pursuit towards Jesus.
Yeah.
Every day. And I don't think I was probably more going through motions 5 years ago, 2 years, 3 years
Sure.
ago. And now it's, the one thing I really challenge myself and hopefully people around me maybe see is that lukewarm Christianity should not be existent.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you should be all in, and there's a passion and a fire that is so exciting, greater than even winning the national championship in soccer. Like, it's a greater fire inside of me, the way I feel, when I'm worshiping on a Sunday or whenever, or if I'm cranking in the car and a song comes on, it's just, I love it. Like that fulfills me so much more now than it did on that cold Florida night back in 2006 when we won the national title. And that's a cool feeling, but it wasn't anything near where I feel now. And that's, I think, where I know I'm going in a good direction.
Cold night. You
Love
sure
that.
you were in Florida?
It was freezing.
I love that. I mean, it gets a little cold February, March,
Yeah, you could have some times. Well, again, man, thank you so much. We want to transfer into our topic of conversation for today. Obviously, us being very big sports guys, and me being a very big college sports guy, we wanted to talk on the topic of NIL, name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal. These are things that have only happened within the last 5 to 6 years in college sports, making a giant change in the culture of college sports in general. The transfer portal starting in October of 2018 and the NIL starting in July of 2021. I could sit here and talk for the next 20 minutes about it, but I obviously want to, before I share my thoughts as our guest, I would love to get yours. What do you feel like? You hear a lot from current coaches that have retired, the Nick Sabans and others, those that have left to go to the pros, things of that nature. And then you all hear kind of a lot of them chime in. Dabo Swinney saying the same thing as the Nick Sabans, Kirby Smart after the Orange Bowl game against Florida State, and all of them kind of saying some of the same things. But then you've got individuals that have nothing to do with college sports, like Mike Greenberg and some of the others, having a completely different take on NIL and transfer portal. So what are your thoughts on how that has shifted the culture in college football?
Well, so like this topic you said something earlier about like you feel like you're kind of this old man and like you're that grumpy old man. Like I feel like every time I talk about this now, I feel like I'm the grumpy old man. Like, so it's so not even knowing your stance. Okay. I'll give you mine. And again, it's probably not right. And I'm not going to argue with somebody like
I'm going to argue that mine's right.
Okay, good. Well, there you go.
Go for it.
And I'm going to referee.
Yeah. So what I think is, I think in college sports and college athletics, I think amateurism. I think you make a choice to go that route to get an education, and we act like these kids don't get any perks. They get a lot of perks. Okay. The only outlier, in my opinion, is there's football, and then there's kind of everything else. So it's almost two different dynamics. But I just think like you either get to decide you want to go professional in whatever sport you're going to decide to go to, or you're going to college. But going to college, you're a student. Okay, you're a student athlete. If you will decide to go pro, and I get there's an NBA rule, that they can't go without being 19, and I get that. Like, so maybe there needs to be a bigger collaboration on how to change that. But give kids an opportunity to either declare pro or go to college. But if they're in college, okay, I wish that they weren't getting paid. And I understand that there's the name, image, likeness thing. I understand that. But I think that if you give all the choice to them, is you can go to college or you can become pro right off the get-go. And you make that choice knowing here's the benefits of both sides, and you get to make your decision. And if we're going to go the route of kids are going to get paid, which, again, I'm not overly fond of that, but if we're going to go that route, it's gotten completely out of hand. I think it's completely blown up to the point of where it wasn't supposed to get like this. I'm going to test – I know Jeremy's going to know this name, but I'm going to test your name here, JB.
Oh,
okay? And maybe you guys have talked about him already, but if I said the name Will Howard, do you know who that is?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
okay. So I'm thank goodness, because you just proved my point. So Will Howard just signed a $1 million NIL deal, transferring from K-State to Ohio State.
Yep.
Okay. You don't know his name. He's not worth $1 million. The problem is that's the going rate at Power 5 conferences.
Yeah.
So it's no longer paying for your name, image, and likeness. You're paying for what's the going rate for a quarterback at a Power 5 conference. To me, that's not NIL anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the fact that like Caitlin Clark, everybody knows who she is. Her name, image, and likeness is worth something. I understand that. Will
Yeah.
Howard is not. Okay, and so that's where we've got this whole thing blown up and backwards, and now it's literally I heard it on the radio on the way over to a meeting today that a guy made his final decision because of who was going to pay him 500,000 versus whatever, and like that's not the purpose of what this is. That guy's not worth. I've never heard the college basketball player before, but that's what that's what the going rate is, and that's what guys are shopping for, and I don't think that was the intent and purpose behind it. So I think it's kind of gotten out of control from that standpoint. So if we go the route of paying players, and then this is my last thing, and then I'll be done here. If we go the route of that, I think it needs to be a capped thing per month, like a monthly stipend for those student athletes of, if it's whatever it is that your university or whatever deems appropriate. If it's they get a $2,500 stipend this month, okay, that probably makes more than most college kids, or maybe it's $3,000 a month or whatever it is. Whatever you feel like your university can afford, that's what they're going to get, and that's your student athlete stipend that you'll get, and not these lucrative $1 million deals from kids that are 18 years old that have no business trying to deal with that kind of money. And so I feel like there should be some sort of happy medium, and we got to rein it back in because I feel like it's getting out of control. And my biggest fear is what you've seen everywhere is the trickle down effect, right? So I'm a high school athletic director. At what point are we going to start seeing this down into our system going, all right, what local Douglas businesses are going to want to fork over money for kids that want to come and play in Douglas or whatever, and that's just, again, it goes back to amateurism. Like you've signed on to do something as an amateur, and that's where I believe. So.
Well, that was part of my question for you, Jason, are you seeing this with what you're doing now in your school? Are you seeing it in the Wichita schools, which is the major metro where you're at? So I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so your quarterback next year at K-State, Avery Johnson, I believe was one of only 2 high school athletes that I'm aware of in Kansas last year that had NIL deals. The other one was a running back out of Derby. You know where that is. I don't expect JB to, but both big schools right outside the Wichita metro. Him and the running back down there who signed at Colorado originally to play for Dion. Okay, those are the only 2 kids I know of in Kansas that have had NIL deals as high school athletes. So again, that's the first time. So that was last year. I don't know about this year or anything, but again, you're starting to see it. I think they're. I don't know how much they were at car dealerships, maybe something like that. And so it'll take time, but 10 years from now, it's going to be a pretty substantial issue, I think, in high school sports. And I think, again, you're dealing with a lot of integrity issues at that point that scare me.
Is that going to change your guys' rules in terms of how it works in terms of the lines of the high schools, the districts, the recruitment? Does that change things for you guys?
It does, and so that's the other thing. I know we haven't quite talked about transfer portal.
Maybe
it's all kind of the same, right? Like it's all merging, but that's probably the bigger issue in high school sports right now. Is they're hopping around from school to school. They're they're doing the school shopping. They don't like their experience here, then they're going to go 15 minutes somewhere else. And so our state organization, and Florida's got one too, and I'm sure they got transfer rules. Ours is, you start as a freshman in high school wherever you want. And then if you try to transfer after that, you're supposed to sit for 365 days before you're eligible again. And there's basically 2 ways to get around that is if you move to the district of where you want to go play, or you apply for what's called a hardship, which is basically beyond the student's control. So those are the only 2 ways to become eligible after that. But it doesn't stop kids from trying. And you see a bunch of gray areas of parents renting apartments to get eligible at that district, and then they give their apartment away after that. And so, but again, you're seeing that trickle down effect of what's happening from the transfer portal, and Oklahoma, which is just one state south of us, just approved this year a one-time free transfer from high schools. And so they won't be docked eligibility whatsoever. And that's one state away from us. So you don't think that's going to come north pretty soon? It's coming. And that's my fear is I don't like that either, and we've been hit a lot at my school with kids that have gone to school from kindergarten to 8th grade. And then as a freshman, they've gone to schools about 10 minutes away. And so we've seen some of that now, so it's tough. It's coming. And I don't think any of that stuff has any place in the high school realm. And that's what my fear is.
Yeah, it's a valid fear for sure.
All right, I got to take the floor.
Good.
It's been eating me up.
Oh, here we go.
I
Here
100%
it
agree
is.
with you. I 100% agree with you. Let's talk some numbers here. December, obviously being the end of college football season, is the biggest month for transfer portal numbers. They wait until the end of that season. December of 2023, 1,289 players in the FBS. Almost 1,300 players entered the transfer portal. 608, half of that in 2022, and 490 in 2021. NIL started July of 2021. So this is a huge trend that you're seeing from 2021 until now. Now, colleges are getting around and collectives are getting around pay for play, because technically that is a rule. You're not supposed to be paying for play. You have to show that collective. You have to do signatures. You have to make an appearance somewhere. You have to do something. And now the NCAA is actually even allowing coaches and athletic departments participate in fundraising for these collectives in order to pay these players. They're private transactions to private citizens. That's how the NIL works. And to your point, NIL started in 2021 in order to give athletes an ability who the stigma at the time was that scholarships essentially were not enough. Not everybody was getting full-time scholarships.
Right.
College is expensive. They're raising the price. We're not allowed to be gifted anything, although that was happening, i.e. Cam Newton and others. And so at the time you felt bad, and you're like, athletes, you know, with the schools that are making this amount of money, and you see the TV contracts for all these Power 5 conferences, they have to be able to, you know, these players to be able to make some money. However, the NCAA did nothing to regulate that when they opened the floodgates. Nothing to regulate it whatsoever. So you have individuals, for instance, our defensive end last year. We had two top defensive ends, Jared Verse, who should be a first-round pick in this year's draft, and Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton declared after the Orange Bowl into the transfer portal, but never put his name in there. It was a scare tactic. That's all that was. It was a scare tactic. He never officially put his name in it. He comes back on Twitter afterwards and says, guys, you know, I'm all about, you know, the Noles. I'm all about being here for the Noles. I just needed to get that cheddar. Maybe not quote unquote, but to some respect,
that's pretty close, actually. Yeah.
You can go and look at it right now. You have third string or second string Arch Manning sitting on the bench, warming the pine in Texas, making more money in NIL deals than two-time NFC Championship winner and Super Bowl attendee Brock Purdy in his $500,000 rookie contract or whatever he's still on.
Right.
Obviously, he's going to get paid a lot more money when that's up.
That's changing soon. Yeah.
Yep. He's going to get paid a lot more money when that's up.
Oh, yeah.
But to your point, they have set no regulations of any kind. And so here you are where you have the Nick Sabans of the world that are saying it is nearly impossible to not have the biggest conversation being whenever you go sit down with a recruit, how much money are you going to pay me and how much playing time? Now, you have Dion, who just recently argues that and says, well, that's not a big topic of conversation, you know, for me when I go and sit down with recruits. Sorry, dude, don't believe it. And or that may be why you're not bringing in big recruits. One or the other, you know, might be the reasoning behind it. But the NCAA, again, as I said before, has done nothing to set a standard. They have allowed free reign to the states to decide how they want to go about setting NIL rules, transfer rules, things of that nature. And so we're only 5 or 6 years ago where if they gave you a penny, then you were gone, you know, as a team. And I get on this soapbox because, you know, if I was before, even before the Orange Bowl, I was a fan of Kirby Smart. I thought that I've always thought that he was a great coach. I've enjoyed watching what he's done at Georgia after leaving Alabama. He blew the whistle on Florida State, but yet at the same time went and did some of his own stuff. And at that point, lost all respect for him. You're going to blow the whistle on Florida State for an offensive coordinator driving you to a lunch with an NIL collective as just a transfer portal. You have not fully enlisted on the team as of yet. This guy almost was a spy for Georgia just about, because he goes to this meeting, sits down with the collective, hears all that they have to say, runs back to Georgia, tells Georgia everything that happens, takes his name out of the transfer portal, stays at Georgia, and then Kirby Smart blows the whistle. Could be a conspiracy. I don't know. Not here to judge, but nevertheless. So the fact that we're having these conversations about college sports, there was a day and a time, and again, you talk about the old, the old man adage, right? There was a day and a time where you were looking forward to going to college to show the professionals, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. This is how I can show you, because you're trying to go to the pros. David Pollock, we all know who David Pollock is. He said 0.02% of athletes actually entered the NFL. 0.02%. Right. And so you have college that you're taking pride, right, in the shirt that you're wearing. Like the pride that, that Jeremy and I get putting on putting on Florida State stuff and Kansas City stuff. The pride that we get in our teams. You used to have players that had that, and they would wear their school colors and take pride in the fact that they were there at that school and walk it out on that field, being able to play for the history, right, of that team. They don't care about that anymore.
So I got to listen to at my athletic directors conference 2 weeks ago. I listened to a K-State staffer, and that he hit the head on the nail on that, because he said we used to go do a bunch of community service projects as teams to build that community and go out. And now the kid's response is, "Yeah, I'll go, but am I going to get paid a couple $100 for that appearance?" And he said that's the mentality now, is the expectations they're going to get paid for everything, versus what you just said is, I'm trying to build community here in at the K-State community or whatever. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong of what the purpose should be now.
Yeah. And these teams, there was a coach that said that it was difficult to be able to build a culture of a team because how often players are coming and going. So to build that camaraderie. Mike Greenberg, Greeny, if you're a sports guy, you know who he is as a commentator on ESPN. He made the most ridiculous statement you could think of the other day, but he talked about how he was comparing coaches and players when it comes to NIL and leaving. And he was saying that you can't sit there and get mad at players for wanting to transfer to another school to better themselves. And he listed out how many coaches in college from 2018 until now, how many brand new coaches were hired, how many of them are now with that team. A lot of them were fired or let go in some capacity, but then how many went to a different school? And is saying that it's the same exact thing. That had to be a ridiculous statement, because the truth is you're talking about 30, 40, and 50-year-old coaches that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years or more, that are mature families making decisions best for them. And you've got 18-year-olds that don't even know how to balance a checkbook or know what a checkbook is. And you're comparing them and saying they're apples to apples. The most ridiculous statement that I could think of. And so as you go forward as a college football fan, it's people ask me all the time about recruiting or, recruiting out of high school. And I said, I don't even pay attention to that anymore because it doesn't matter. I've watched one recruit, high 5-star recruit, top recruit Florida State gets all the way up until 2 days before National Signing Day and say, peace out. Georgia got me. I'm out. Mm-hmm. North Carolina got me. I'm out. It's like, so I don't pay attention. And even after you sign on the dotted line, we have players on our own team that have gone, and I'll give you a Rodney Hill. So Rodney Hill was a young running back that Florida State had at the end of last year. And he was going to see a lot of playing time coming into this year. Great running back, great speed. Again, as we talked about, Jalen Lucas, Indiana transfer, Florida State now. And He looked at his playing time or whatever and said, I'm out. Now, he has already gone to FAMU, then re-entered the transfer portal, and I believe went to Miami, and then re-entered the transfer portal again and is now does not have a team. He hasn't played a snap. He hasn't played a down. And he's gone from Florida State through 2 other schools at this particular moment. And as an NCAA, you can't sit there and tell me that you look back at this and say, well, it's just, this is normal. Like, this is the goal, the objective, the view, and the standard that we want to set for college football.
So could I be devil's advocate?
Sure.
Hold that thought real fast. So just real fast, just for housekeeping, we're at 1 minute, 1 hour 10 already, JB. I think all 3 of us have a lot to say on this. I've really said nothing at all. So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest, as long as it works within Jason's schedule, we have a part 2 of this. I think we bring him back. I think we stop right here. Hold that thought, Jason. Can you come back maybe next week and we'll do a part 2 of the NIL transfer portal conversation?
We can do that.
I want to say something. I know JB's got more to say.
Jason, I'm usually the timekeeper here, stopping other people, but
I'm timing out this episode.
We got to an hour.
Hour 11.
We got to an hour, and then I got the floor, and I was like, this isn't good. This is not good.
So I think we should continue this conversation. But devil's advocate, go ahead, Jason.
Well, 2 minutes, and I'm going to go off NIL and tell my Orlando Magic story.
Let's end with that.
So that's why I was laughing so bad when you were talking about it earlier. And I wish I could call into the radio show and be like, "Hey, interrupt," So, Orlando Magic was actually the team I grew up with. That's what made me love the NBA. That's what I fell in love with. So Central Kansas kid, Orlando Magic. I'm talking Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway teams. For Christmas one year, we were going. My dad was working and doing a thing in spring break in San Antonio. So the first NBA game I ever got, Christmas tickets. They took us to a Orlando Magic San Antonio Spurs game.
Yes.
And so we had a blast. My bedroom was Orlando Magic everything.
Yes.
I can't believe you remember that, Jeremy. That's nuts.
I do remember it. I do remember.
When I was 9, I got a cat, and we named it Magic. And that's how.
Oh my goodness! No way.
My first sports team love. I don't remember loving a team before that one. Like Orlando Magic was kind of my first team. So Central Kansas boy
awesome.
With Florida love, man. So
he's more a Magic fan than I am, and I've lived here 20 plus years in Orlando.
So
I think he's a bigger fan than me.
That's right. Go Magic. Go Magic. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up. We are going to have we will go to day 2 of this because like I said, I can continue to talk about this. Well, Jason, we can have you back on, to continue this conversation. It's been great having you today. It's been great meeting you, man. Thank you so much for all of your inspiring words that you spoke on earlier in this conversation. That's what we look for in these conversations, right? Is obviously to have some fun talking about some sports, but at the end of the day, we want this to be inspiring. We look at this as an opportunity to minister to others that are listening to this. So, and what a story that you have. So thank you so much again for just, being vulnerable and just really sharing your heart on just your journey with your faith and how that's impacted you and your life with your wife and your kids and so on and your family. And I think that speaks volume about who you are and your character. So again, man, awesome job. Just continue to be encouraged and stay in the course with that. And again, thank you so much for being on.
No, pleasure's mine, guys. I had a blast, even more fun than I thought I would. So I appreciate the time, guys. So God bless.
Thanks, hey, we're a lot of fun here, man. So All right, Mr. Jason. Well, you have a great day, sir. We'll talk to you again next week.
He's got kids to take care of. Let him go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, Chop Nation, we thank you so much. I know this episode was a lot more lengthy than usual, but it's so hard to keep everything within an hour. So thanks for hanging in with us. We hope that you enjoyed, having this conversation and enjoyed listening to Mr. Jason Menard today. Go ahead and look him up. A lot of great things being said about him online. So go ahead and if you want to get to know him a little bit more, there's certainly some things that you can look him up on. Again, don't forget to check us out. We're trying to get onto iTunes if we can get our logo right. So hopefully we're on iTunes podcast, Apple Podcasts there really soon. But in the meantime, we are on iHeartRadio. We are on Spotify and a slew of others, FM Player. And you can still go check us out on Podbean as well. And then
YouTube
of course,
as well.
YouTube. YouTube at Chop-Talk dash nation or podcast, excuse me, at chop dash talk dash podcast. So check out Chop Talk Podcast. Look us up there. Certainly continue to view everything. Email us at choptalknation@gmail.com. And again, thank you so much for listening. Great episode today. Jeremiah, have a great rest of your day, man. We look forward to episode number 5, lucky number 5, coming up next week. So again, stay tuned. You all have a great rest of your day. God bless.
Stay prayed up. Bye, guys.